Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm Essence Ori. I do many things on my page, mainly readings, but today we're going to talk about shadow work. But if you want to get a personal reading from me, my email will be in the description box below, or if you want to get spiritual coaching from me, it'll be in the description box below as well. But let's talk about shadow work. And I feel like we hear the word shadow work a lot, and we really don't know the foundation of why people do shadow work and what it's used for, especially if you like a spiritualist, a hoodooist, a witch, or you just name yourself an alchemist or a spiritualist, whatever. It's important to know thyself in this journey so you won't be easily controlled. I feel like we lose the plot of like, I don't feel like I need to reflect on myself. I know everything about myself, but we'll be so shocked of how much we do not know about ourselves. And that's where shadow work come in. Shadow work is a version of yourself that's been hidden or you've been suppressing for a long time because somebody made you feel little, belittled, made you feel dumb, or abused you for being that person at hand. And you push that version of yourself or that trauma or that belief about yourself away, and that's quote unquote called the shadow self. Whether that's the inner child, the inner teen, or the young adult, or now, it doesn't matter. Your shadow is a version of yourself you're not willing to see or you suppress because you just feel so shame or guilty about. And it's not shadow work is or your shadow self is not meant to be deemed to be less than, or oh, I should not be feeling this way. It's meant for us to confront it, comfort it, take accountability, to grow, to expand from it, and also know that it's a safe space for our shadow self to thrive, but also to know when to bring her or him out, or when to, have her take a backseat, but do not suppress her. That's when we block ourselves from actually knowing ourselves, seeing ourselves for who we truly are, whether we like it or not, whether we like that version of ourselves or not. And that's when we come to the authenticity. And that's why I feel like it's so important to know shadow work for what it is and how to unhide it from yourself or constantly suppress it. And I know we all been through something and we choose not to deal with it because it's hard to face it. But once we face it, it's easy for us to embrace it, to not allow it to control us for so long. But also I think shadow work is something that create habits or like routines, or the way we react to things, or cause anxiety or stress and worry because we choose to suppress it and not face it. And when we suppress things, it's easy for us to be manipulated and controlled because we're not really facing that version of ourselves, because we deem that less than, whether we realize it or not. And the shadow is for us to see and honor that version of ourselves and heal that version of ourselves and love that version of ourselves, to see why do we do the certain things that we do. And when we face that, we're not so easily to be manipulated because that inner child or that inner teen or young adult self or our current self don't need something outside of us to continue to feed the void. And a lot of times when we suppress our inner child, we continue to seek something outside of us because we're trying to feed a void of a version of our shadow self that we're not willing to see. And I feel like shadow work is very important. Whether you call it reflection, shadow work, healing, it's still a version of ourselves that deserve recognition and acknowledgement, to bring light to the shadow and walk in unison with the shadow and not deem that it's less than, because once you deem that's less than, you pretty much calling yourself less than. And once you own that version of yourself and honor it and tend to it and create new habits from bringing light and awareness to those versions or those traumas of what life is, or what type of life you're living right now that's continuing to not serve you, it's bringing more light to it, so you can be like, okay, I can actually change my reality. I can actually be more of what other people tell me to be. I can do so much more. And I'm not deemed to my past. I'm not chained to my past. I'm not in a cage that's telling me, oh my God, I can't feel express my emotions. Now you have the opportunity to show and express your authenticity in your own emotion and hold space for that. And that's where shadow work is. Shadow work is holding space for that version of yourself. Doing like voice memos or journaling or going to therapy, or just finding your own way, expressing that through art, singing, to acknowledge that version of yourself, to work through it and face it and not feel like oh my God, I'm doing all this work and nothing is happening. But I feel like a lot of times we write and we do these word, write, talk it out, or do the voice memos and things like that. The main key I feel like a lot of people miss in shadow work is that they think through it logically and internally instead of actually feeling through it, emotionally feeling through it, to actually break the seal of what is really hiding behind it. That emotion, those random emotions come up and you have those flashbacks of your past, that is your shadow self that's waiting to be seen and acknowledged for you. And when those emotions come up, when you're not at work or just constantly living, doing things that you're not in your own home, in your own space, or in your own environment that feels safe for you, create a sacred space for yourself to hold space for those moments of yourself. Even if you have to schedule out a time in your life to cry or crash out or get angry and express how you really feel. I feel like a lot of times we think shadow work should be all fluffy and cute and things like that. Shadow work is getting to the nitty gritty. Sliding down a wall, throwing things at a wall, like crashing out, saying what you gotta say, whether if it make the person feel good or not, whether it make you feel guilty of what you want to say to other people. You don't necessarily have to say it to them, but you can say it out loud and tell people how much they had you fucked up. Like, how much they had you fucked up, and say all the things that your inner child, your young teen self wanted to say, and breaking the seal of that. I mean, I used to really had to go through that, especially recently, of like having my throat chakra kind of blocked because I didn't want to say certain things to put people off or trying to control how other people react to how I really feel. But that's not my problem, because that person, they had no problem treating me the way I was treated. So I get to say however the fuck I want to say it and the way I want to say it, even if it sounds like off the walls and all the stuff you want to say as a kid you couldn't say. That is your time to let it out. How much people had you fucked up, man? Like, had you fucked up. And that's when you have that shadow version of yourself to actually be released and be acknowledged and be like, okay, I got it out. So how can I prevent this situation happening in the future? What steps can I do? What creative habits can I make? What type of boundaries can I set for that version of myself to not feel less than anymore, and know that I can see where certain traumas or certain abuse or habits come in, because I've seen this happen in my past. Now I know what necessary steps I can take now to prevent that from happening for my own safety. Not putting an expectation on other people like, nah, you shouldn't do that. No, you be like, I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't do this. I don't do that. And that's what my preference is. I don't be on the phone at 10 o'clock at night trying to conversate with some people. Like, for example, like, I don't do that. Instead of like, I don't take phone calls, or like, you should be calling me at this time. Like, no, you set the boundary. You set the tone. You show people how you want to be treated. You no longer allow other people to treat you how they want to be treated. Not everybody want to be treated the same way. And that's where your shadow work is very important. Of course, getting it out, saying how you feel, like work through it by writing and saying these voice memos, or going to therapy, or working out, or creating, but also feeling your emotion through it, the anger, the sadness, the shame, the guilt, the moments when you feel pathetic about yourself. Just write it out, let it out, and let it be seen and acknowledge it, so it can be, you can change it and shift it and alchemize it and transmute it into something else instead of staying stuck in that moment in your life. Shadow work is really seeing you. And then once you get to that point of like having your own routine of doing your shadow work, whether that's like once a week out of the month, and live your life for the rest of the rest of the month. But it's just like, I feel a lot of people get stuck in like having shadow work done every day, and I don't feel like certain people don't need to do that every day. Take it slow and steady, because they always run the race. But also, just you having that moment to yourself to acknowledge yourself is very key. But I always recommend people start off with doing 3 days out the month, and then once you realize something about yourself, allow yourself to feel it, process it, release it, because it's going to bring up others' memories for you, and then you're just going to have to release it as real, write it out. But also, after you get to that, now that's when you make the plan of habit, what you need to do to prevent this stuff from happening in the future. And then when you do that, that's when you have that month, the rest of the month, to actually practice what you have been writing about and what you want to do to overcome this. And this is gonna take time. It's not gonna be easy right off the bat. You're gonna have a plan of how you want to do it. It's probably gonna come naturally to you, or you want to do more research about how you can better this version of yourself, or better this way of coping and creating new habits in your life to be more sustainable and healthy for you in the long term, instead of something that's a quick fix. And I say, when you create habits now, it's not gonna be something that's a quick fix. It's something that's supposed to be longevity. And it's gonna be difficult at first, and then over time, as you constantly do it month after month, it's gonna become a little bit easier. Shadow work is something that is very deep and very, I would say, time consuming and very hard for some people, but it is something that we as a person choose to do to see ourselves more authentically. So take time, reflect, and see yourself as who you desire to be, but also honor those shadow versions of yourself. Those moments when you wasn't the best person, the moment that you was doing wrong to other people and taking accountability to other people. I mean, for yourself, of course, your accent into other people, but it's just like, take the time for yourself. That is a time to honor and nurture yourself. Once you see your shadow, nobody else can tell you what your shadow is. You can see that. You can acknowledge that. You can peel back the layers of seeing who you want to be. And I feel like it's necessary, especially in a person who's doing magic or spirituality or hoodoo or an alchemist or whatever you like to call yourself in your journey. It's for you to be true to yourself. And I feel like shadow work is that part of you that's waiting to be seen, so we can unleash that. And I feel like we see shadow as a bad thing, but shadow is like the hidden key to us being the best version, but the key to manifesting something better. A lot of times we suppress our creativity or how we want to express ourselves within our shadows, because as a young age somebody deemed us to be less than because we want to express ourselves in a certain way. And once we break the seal of that, that's when we have more creativity, more wise way of moving through life, instead of out of lack, out of scarcity, out of anxiety, out of worthlessness, and not being worthy of what you desire out of life. You do deserve it. And that's what time is there for you to unleash and unveil those versions of yourself. And when I first started doing shadow work, it was not easy. It was very hard for me. But I also honor those moments of unsureness and hoping that I received some type of clarity through the process, and I did. It just takes time. And I would say for me, I cried for 6 months straight after doing doing shadow work constantly. That's why I be suggest people do it 3 days to a week out of the month to actually sit with the version of yourself, process it, make habits that's more suitable for you to move into the next phase of not preventing these things happening in the future. But we don't want to overwhelm ourselves and live in those moments over and over again. We have to learn how to move on. And that's also, I feel like shadow work is helping us learn how to detach for what no longer serves us, and not allowing our past to dictate our future. And when you crafting and doing your workings and stuff like that, it helps to be more potent, because when we do workings, we don't realize that it brings up old versions of ourselves for us to see. So that when we do this working again, it can hit 10 times harder, because you don't have that block or that shadow work you need to do to help this hit the way you want it to hit, and what you put in your petition. A lot of times our magic does not hit because we have a blockages within ourselves that make it seem like we're not worthy of receiving what we want. And shadow work help us, deal with that, to be able to move forward and have more of a cleaner and more of a successful turnout rate within our workings. So yeah, I really hope this video helps somebody, give you some type of clarity of what shadow work is and how it can help you in your journey. And if you have any questions of what shadow work is, or certain things about shadow work you want to ask question about, leave it in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe if you really enjoyed this video. But also, if you want to get deep dive in your spiritual journey, and also just get into shadow work and ask yourself deeper questions as well, I do have spiritual coaching sessions in my email below, so feel free to reach out through there. But also, I feel like journaling and having prompts and asking yourself questions can tap into the self-conscious mind to unleash what has been hidden under the surface. A lot of times we speak what comes out, brained up and things like that. But when you ask the question, it prompts your mind to answer the question right away. Not think about it. It just comes naturally. Especially when people do journal prompts, whether you writing it out or when your therapist asks you a question, or when you do voice memos, ask yourself questions to actually get to the root cause, to uproot the bad seeds that's been planted in your gardens and peel them up so you can be able to see the root cause of it. So you can plant new seeds of new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways to move forward in your own practices, in your own journey. So, yeah, I just really hope this video helps somebody. And if you do, just let me know by leaving a comment, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, family.